Hi and Assalamualaikum everyone. I'm Nursufi binti Muhammad and I will introduce to you to our topic, which is from group number 2, World War II. This presentation will explain and cover the following topics such as the introduction, the roles of media, which will include radio, film and newspaper, the ways of media influence the outcome of the Second World War, the use and function of the media during the Second World War, and last but not least, the conclusion, which we will summarize the following topics. And for the next video, I will show you a brief overview that includes the timeline events in the Second World War. So stay tuned. The war in Europe began in September 1939 when Nazi Germany, under Adolf Hitler, invaded Poland. Using blitzkrieg tactics, the country was quickly overtaken. At this time, the world was truly shocked by what happened. Britain and France responded by declaring war on Germany but took a little action on it. This became known as the Phony War. But in the year 1940, German offensives defeated Denmark, Norway, Belgium, the Netherlands, and France. The British Army, meanwhile, was on the retreat of being evacuated from Dunkirk, while Britain alone was attacked by Germany during the Battle of Britain and Blitz. In June 1941, Hitler invaded Russia under the codename Operation Barbarossa. In December 1941, the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, bringing the USA into war. Germany, Italy, and Japan formed the Axis power, while Britain, Russia, and the USA made up the major combatants on the Allied side. In 1942, Nazis implemented their final solution, a plan to exterminate all Jewish people. Critical battles followed that would dramatically change the course of the war. These were Midway in the Pacific Theater, June 1942. On June 6, 1944, the day the Allies launched Operation Overlord, invading Normandy, France. The Red Army advanced in the east and was the first to reach the German capital of Berlin. And then after that, in May 1945, Germany surrendered shortly after Adolf Hitler committed suicide. On 6th of August 1945, the Americans dropped an atomic bomb on Hiroshima, Japan, which makes them surrender on 15th August 1945. And after that, the war was over.
Hi everyone, my name is Afika and now I will give a brief about World War II, which is the introduction. Okay, World War II is just like World War I. It was a major turning point in the 20th century war history. It was known as the biggest and deadliest war in the human history that involved countries, colonies, territories around the entire world. The war is lasted from 1939 until 1945. As we know, Adolf Hitler and his National Socialists, which is a Nazi party, rearmed Germany after taking power and forget treaties with Italy and Japan to further their dream to world dominance. Hitler's invasion of Poland in September 1939 drove Great Britain and France to declare a war on Germany, which is the main cause that triggered the World War II. These are the majority of the world nations that eventually joined one of two rival alliances, which is the Allies or the Axis. The Allies' power is contained of the Great Britain, the United States, the Soviet Union, and the France, while the Axis power is contained of Italy, Germany, and Japan.
Hi, my name is Hafizuddin. I'm gonna explain the theory during World War II. During World War II, radio was the most popular media since it was the cheapest form of entertainment. Because of its accessibility and availability, it fostered propaganda and allowed it to reach a vast number of people. Also, radio provided entertainment and information to the public, which is urging civilians to participate in the war effort. This is quite an example of an agenda-setting theory, which is the issues that attract the greatest attention from the media become the issues that the public discusses or debates and demands action on. Also, we can have a look at Tommy Hensley is Dead Man Again, one of the most popular shows in Britain at the time, was able to reach up to 40% of population. During World War II, however, the success of radio propaganda in World War I inspired fascist and social regimes. Also, Edward Murrow News stories proved to be effective radio propaganda. His imagery captured the nation's mind as he covered the Battle of Britain and nightly bombing strike in London. In order to keep civilians interested, broadcasting was available 24 hours a day in America, and 90% of American families on a radio during World War II. However, propaganda did not go down well with residents as it reminded them of the efforts made during World War I. As a result, President Roosevelt and others tried to persuade the public that the government's goal was not to restrict information, but to inform it. Also, we can have a look at the U approach was one of the most successful radio program tactics adopted by the American government. By addressing the listener directly, this strategy immersed them in scenarios such as battle or being in a military camp. Meanwhile, radio was a major propaganda instrument in Nazi Germany. Only a few months after World War II broke out, German propagandists were broadcasting about 11 hours of material each day, with the majority of the transmission being in English. Propagandists target specific groups such as capitalists, Jews, and specific publications and politicians in order to erode pro-British feelings. Aside from that, William Joyce was the most notable English language speaker on German radio. On the station Hamburg, his propaganda show, which is Germany Calling, was aired to viewers in the United Kingdom. From 1939 to 1945, when the British Army overran the Hamburg, the program was in place. His show aimed to demoralize British, Canadian, Australian, and American troops, as well as the British public in the broadcast area. Despite the fact that the show was discouraged from being broadcast in the United Kingdom, nearly 6 million regular listeners and 18 million occasional listeners turned in. That's all from me. I'm gonna pass it to the next presenter. Thank you.
The direct effect models of media studies was formed out of widespread concerns that mass media messages would overpower other stabilizing cultural forces such as family and community in one of the early formulations of media impacts. This concept, which was popular in the 1920s and 1930s, claimed that audiences would passively receive media messages and respond to them in predictable ways. Radio was the most popular medium during World War II since it was the cheapest source of entertainment, and radio entertained and informed the people while also encouraging civilians to join the war effort. So during World War II, the effectiveness of radio propaganda during World War I impacted fascist and communist administration. In Nazi Germany, radio was also a powerful propaganda tool. Only after a few months, World War II began. German propagandists were transmitting around 11 hours of content per day, which was mostly in English. For your information, the most known radio, or more likely to be called as the People's Receiver, is Volksempfänger, which the model was presented on August 18, 1933 in Berlin. It is recognized as the vital element of success in spreading the Nazi ideology, which could not be ignored by the majority of German population.
Radio was a considerably more cost-effective medium of entertainment than a television. As a result, during World War II, radio was the most popular source of entertainment. Radio stations were used to spread propaganda to a large number of people. Many programs became famous and influential in a short period of time in specific regions. Radio broadcasts were regulated by the government, as were other types of entertainment at the time, and were pushed to keep the public informed about war operations and to inspire them to assist the cause. In World War II, radio stations, along with other forms of media, were important sources of propaganda. Tommy Henry, a comedian, used his radio broadcasts to keep civilians informed about the war effort and to keep Britain's spirits up during this difficult period. In World War II, it's that men again had a significant impact, with up to 40% of the British people listening to it. The final episode of the show aired on January 6, 1949, and Henley died 3 days later. In World War II, the film industry was a vital form of communication for people on both sides. People's favorite form of entertainment at the time was going to the movies. It was used to amuse, uplift, encourage, and educate the audience. As a result, movies became an essential tool for disseminating propaganda. The film was utilized by governments to persuade citizens to support the war effort in their daily lives and to justify their actions. The film was a tremendous force that brought nations together. Cinemas were a fantastic venue to see educational films. New films in theaters were frequently enlightening about a country's military efforts or the conflict's progress. Additional videos were also published by the government to mirror the intended human behaviors and activities throughout the battle. These government videos frequently advise ways to cope with the loss of family and homes, as well as warning the viewers about enemy spies.
Assalamualaikum and have a good day. I am Anandra 220-950. I will explain the conclusion for this presentation. In World War II marked the beginning of a terrible new era in combat, in which the deaths of civilians significantly exceeded the number of military fighters. World War II took place between the Axis power and the Allied powers. Axis power, which are Germany, Italy, and Japan, and the Allied powers, which are Britain, the United States, the Soviet Union, and French. During World War II, homeland protection became an important part of the war effort for Allied and Axis powers. Radio is the first step in bringing a level where the public can be touched nationally. Propaganda played an important role before and during World War II. It helped speed up the progression of the war and speeds up the actual battle. Radio broadcasts, like other forms of entertainment, at the time were controlled by the government and urged the public to be informed of the war effort and encouraged the people to have the struggle. Radio stations, along with other media channels, were the main fuel of propaganda during World War II. Furthermore, the government controlled the entertainment sector during this time period to positively represent the war and present public moral. In most of the world, governments also control most of mass media entertainment, including radio, cinema, and music. Radio was the most affordable forms of entertainment and the most popular media during World War II. Because of its accessibility and availability, it fostered propaganda and could reach a large number of people. Radio provided entertainment and information to the public, urging them to take part in the war effort. Almost every country in the world has participated in some way. The Managed by Tommy Henry, one of the most popular programs, and Rare Films, one of the two features in the Britain at the time of the popular British radio comedy film in World War II, was able to reach out to 40% of the population. The success of radio propaganda during World War I, on the other hand, continued to inspire fascist and social government during World War II. Edward Allen news story provided creative radio propaganda. Every night in London, he made coverage of the battle of Britain and the bombing attacks. World War II affected almost every aspect of American society, including the food they ate, the movies they watched, and the music they listened to, through the influence of radio. According to Cole Cunningham, the effects of radio changed the nature of war. He said that all of a sudden, war has become mobile and it is impossible to communicate with moving tanks and aircraft without radios.